It's been said that every footstep leads to the place we were meant to stand. And after 6 days with over 116,000 steps, this is where I was meant to be. It's been 3 years now since I left my job at the start of the pandemic. And although I realize this is a choice many people dream of, quite honestly, it was my only choice. I have nothing else to fall back on. No prior experience in other careers, and I don't do well with stress. Photography is all that I know. 3 years ago, while making this same drive, I was filled with anxiety over whether or not this would work. Is it possible to do the very thing I love for a living without compromising the joy that it brings me? Or would it extinguish the very flame I've fostered for so long? When following your own path, the destination is often unclear. You may catch a glimpse of it from time to time, hinting at what lies beyond. But there will come a day when you push forward into a clearing, and as you emerge into the light, you'll know you've arrived. The truth is, all paths lead to where we're meant to be. Some are longer than others, but that isn't such a bad thing. With photography, as with many things in life, good things take time, and shortcuts are rarely all that they promise. On last year's visit to Death Valley, I learned to embrace the silence and the solitude of the park, something I struggled with on past visits. It was only by calming the voices within me and learning to trust in the process that I saw a different side of the park. And on this year's trip, I look forward to picking up where I left off. This is the story of my February of 2023 visit to Death Valley National Park. Well, it is just after 11 o'clock, and I've arrived here in Death Valley. And I'll say that the first day of my trips are always the most difficult, just trying to adapt to a new situation, a new routine, and also realizing how much work there is ahead of me. But right now, skies are blue. There's basically no wind. And after setting up camp, decide to revisit a canyon that I took a photo in last year. And there's been a lot of very significant thunderstorms during the summer months that caused a lot of flood damage throughout the park. So I'm curious to see if I can observe any changes in this canyon. But I'm gonna head up the canyon, see if we can find any interesting subjects, and also figure out the timing for the canyon up here that probably has some pretty decent light on it right about now. So we're gonna see how it looks. But feels good to be here, and I'll see what I can find this year. So I followed the canyon all the way to its natural dead end, which was rather dramatic. It got very narrow, and then there was this massive green boulder that was just suspended maybe, I don't know, 3-4 feet over this little passage. And if I looked back behind it, you can see that you can go a little further, but then there was a really steep slope, and then there was another big boulder back there, and it seems like that was the end of the line. So I definitely was not willing to go under said boulder, but it was fun to see. But then I spent some time over in this really nice passage that gets some really beautiful reflected light, and I was just trying to get a feeling for what the timing is for that glow, and also how to perhaps put a composition on it. So I got some ideas on that, and that'll be something for the days to come. Did not bring my camera with me today. It's just a scouting hike to see if it's still accessible back in there after all the floods, and see if I can find some ideas for composition for it. But now I'm going to head back to my truck, make some tea, get a little sunlight, because I got a little bit of the first day funk going on, which is just it's kind of an awkward, weird feeling on the first day of these trips, and usually a little caffeine helps with that. So head back to my truck and let's get some tea. So that was 6 seconds at 45. And while I was scouting around a little bit earlier today, I saw this boulder here, which was interesting because it stands out quite a bit from the rest of the background in terms of like all these sort of tan colored hills, and then you have this white and reddish colored boulder, which is the same color as the rocks in the background. But what really captivated me was that there is this trail of eroded pieces of that very rock that kind of sweep down away from it. And so I found a composition. It's a horizontal composition where I have the boulder kind of centered in it, but then I have those trails of eroded rocks, or the trail of eroded rocks going down towards the lower left corner, and then all the rolling hills in the background set against the really light colored sandstone. So I've exposed a few sheets of film on this. I did an exposure that was just under 2 seconds, and then this one, these are both on Provia, and in between the two of them I did a sheet of Delta 100 for some black and white. But it is a great way to get the day going in terms of, or I should say to get the trip going, because there's something about exposing that first sheet of film that has is so much better for the experience, because once that pressure is underway, the trip is going. And there's two things typically that, for me at least, get that first day funk to go away. One of them is to expose a sheet of film, and then the other is to pick up some trash, because it makes me feel like I'm doing something productive. And there is a area that I was wandering around earlier today with all those mud cracks and stuff, and the mud cracks this year weren't quite what I was looking to photograph, but there was lots of trash on the ground. I picked it up, it made me feel good. Exposing some film here made me feel good. So this is a great way to kick off the trip. Now, back to camp, grab some dinner. As I packed my gear under the watchful eye of the nearly full moon, I knew deep down the composition I selected was awkward at best. Perhaps there's a better solution for this subject, but that didn't seem to matter. The simple act of exposing those first several sheets of film somehow reassured me that everything would be okay, and all I needed was to have trust in the process. As expected, I'm not a fan of the composition, but the theme of the crumbled rocks would re-emerge later in the trip, producing one of my favorite photos from this visit. Thanks as always for watching, and we'll see you around next time. If you enjoy this ad-free and clickbait-free content and want to help me live my dream, a voluntary contribution through PayPal or by joining my Patreon helps keep my gas tank full and my film freezer stocked. For more information on how to support me and my work, please visit the donation section of my website at benhorne.com/donate. I also have prints, eBooks, and my annual print portfolios available on my website. You can find a direct link down below in the show notes. Thanks in advance for your support.